Okay, Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to Mind Heist episode 109. As you can see, crispy, buttery.
We're trying to upgrade things little by little.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
about time.
Alhamdulillah. It is actually, it is.
How long have we been doing this for now? Must be coming up to 5 years, surely.
5 years, really?
Crazy, but it has to be.
No, I was thinking more like three. I'll tell you now, I'm going to go all the way to the. Episode one was 2017, September 2017. So, yeah, it's 3 and a bit years, like 3.5, nearly.
MashaAllah. Got to whisper sometimes just to check if the quality is better. I like these little showing me some. We're using new software, by the way, everybody, to record this episode and inshallah episodes from here onwards. And we're banning Zoom. All right, we don't need any of that. None of that. What's it called? Standard sort of popular stuff. This is this should ideally produce better quality, better sounding audio. Because I think we took a big because we used to do stuff pre-recorded, right? In terms of we'd record our own audio and then upload it, and the quality I think no doubt was higher audio-wise. And then we took a bit of a dump in audio quality when we decided to go video only or video, recording with video and then using the audio from that. This should be a best of both worlds, I think.
Step back up.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, man. And I think that was really good though that we did that, because with this whole podcasting thing or any kind of video thing, it's more important to get stuff out than to just than to like have this perfect quality. So the quality was reduced. People could still hear us pretty well, and we got, not only did we get video, but we got the what's it called? We got this quickness to it where it's like, yeah, we just come into Zoom, it records it in Zoom, and we close it and upload it. So that was like, I think that was like the most important thing. Alhamdulillah. Bro, for this episode, I mean, we've got emails, maybe we can get to them. But I thought first I'd ask you a question. We can kind of get into this topic. And I just remembered actually, you do Dad's Dunya. So you might have covered this in some way, or you might want to cover it. But anyway, I'll steal it. Like, when I ask you the question, what do you want for your sons? Like, what do you want for your kids? Or what are you aiming to like give your kids? How would you answer that?
It's a good question. I was thinking about that today.
Really?
I was thinking about it in a way that, I was thinking about it in a way that I probably haven't got an answer. And that was what I was concerned about, because I realized that a lot of his interests and activities that he involves himself in are pretty much in line in the same trajectory that I was, things that he's into and things that he enjoys. But at the same time, I don't, you know what? I've always had it beforehand that I wanted to support my children in anything they wanted to do that's permissible. I didn't have it in my head, and I still don't, I don't think, like, in one day I want my child to be very successful X or Y or Z, a lawyer or a scholar or a doctor or whatever, or a sheikh or a alim. I think any of those things is amazing, but at the same time, ultimately, I know that the world is in need of everything, right? And I think I want him to naturally, I say him, but them, all my children, to naturally find their place in the world, but get the support from me in terms of whatever they want to do. But at the moment, it's just about the right and wrong. I think that's what's more on my mind, keeping them away from the wrong and educating them. I'm having a wild moment where the last decade has hit me in a wild way. So it's been more or less 10 years since I first sort of took a big change in my life and decided to become more in touch with Islam, and I wouldn't say practicing, but definitely in touch with Islam and where I'm from. and it hit me like a train this last few weeks how 10 years has gone by so quickly. 17 years old was such a pivotal moment in my life. I can say that without a doubt. I remember 17, I had a big shift in everything. And, my family, first and foremost, will very much know that. I know my mum will know that at 17, my life took a very different turn, in terms of socially, in terms of, the type of people I hung out with and how I identified myself. And I cannot believe that it's been 10 years. I can't believe it. I'm literally just, every day now, I am absolutely stunned. And I just thought, subhanAllah, if I'm here for another 10 years, Sulaiman at least will be, 13, 14. I just can't believe it. That's going to go just like that. So to get back to the question and the core answer, it's really, I just want to be able to transmit the right and wrong, the halal and haram to them clearly. And the I just want them to be, I know it's cliche, but I just want them to be good, respectable people, and that are, they have honor and they are respected in society and known for goodness. I don't want them to be known for fasad and known for fawahish, bro. I just want them, to be known for goodness, akhi. I know it might be not asking for much, but maybe I'm countering the pressures.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like low standards.
What's your answer?
I mean, I probably have a longer answer at least. But what you're saying, it sounds like somebody was telling me. I mean, he's like 10 or more years older than us, and he's got like 3-4 kids, and he was saying that he's like, when it comes to like education and educating his kids, he was kind of saying like, look, they do need to learn all this maths and science stuff, but ultimately I'm only responsible for their akhirah and for giving them the knowledge they need to have success in the akhirah. So that's kind of what I'm really focused on. And I thought that was a bit like low standards, and he said, yeah, but I'm still going to like teach them that stuff, but I just really feel like that's my burden, that's my responsibility. And so that's kind of really what I'm focused on. And he really takes, I mean, his kids are a little bit young still, but he takes the education thing very slowly and very takes it easy, and
Yeah.
I guess it's the opposite of, what especially in the UK, what I felt happens is there's a lot of pressure around, standards and marks and, like year 2, is it, where you have SATs? I don't know if they still have SATs now. I think they stopped them, then they started them. But for example, there's SATs, and like that's a time when parents get stressed, then kids get stressed, teachers get stressed. And it's like at year 2, you're like, how old are you, bro? You're like, are you 10 or... I don't know, not 10 even. No, way younger than that.
Over here, that'd be year... Oh, you're talking about secondaries? No. Year 2, no. 10 years old is going to be like year 5 or 6 here.
Yeah, you're right, yeah. So it's like 7, right? Or 6 or 7, I think. It's
going to be 11 and 12, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years old in year 2, right? And it's like they're so young and there's all that pressure. He's like the opposite, right? He's like, yeah, 7 years old, as long as they can read some Quran and they take an interest and they're curious, then that's cool, kind of thing. So, I mean, I don't think you're saying the same thing though, right? You're saying that you're just not really sure yet.
No, I think, do you know what? I think there has to be a balance, because I don't believe that it's healthy how much pressure kids are under to do well in exams. Like the exams are the be all end all. Like, I don't believe that if you didn't do well at school, that's the end for you financially, right? Because actually now there are so many avenues to financial success, and that's the only, that's one particular avenue of success. But financial success isn't limited to grades, okay? And to be honest, education and the ability to have, I don't know, expertise in particular fields isn't necessarily limited to GCSEs or A levels, because now that I'm over this side of the fence, I'm not necessarily seeing GCSEs and A levels being too relevant in the day to day. But you never know, it could be a subconscious thing. It could be a subconscious sort of knowledge that I've now acquired that I just take for granted because I've gone through those years. But do you know what? I just get, I see my sister, for example, my younger sister now, she's doing A levels, and I can see her getting really stressed out sometimes. And I'm like, it's not the end of the world. Like, you just do your best. And if you don't do well in a particular area, it's not the end of the world. But we build up kids to think this is it, this is the be all end all. And if you don't do well, that's it, your life is over, right? And make these, make decisions about what career you want to do. Because if you don't make these decisions now, it's like all this pressure that actually it just melts their brain, when actually if they don't do well in a particular thing, or they make a mistake or whatever it is, there's this ability to pick yourself back up again and take a different trajectory or a different path. And I don't, I think there's success in many different fields in many different ways, and I don't want to narrow my child's scope of success into a select particular categories or a select particular area. If he shows signs of academia and strength in academia, then no doubt I want to support that and I want to encourage that, of course. If he is struggling, I want to support him as well. But if it's something that he's really not feeling or really not going towards, and actually he maybe is more of a practical learner, or there's other sort of routes of even entrepreneurship or stuff like that he wants to pursue, then there's skills that he can develop in those areas that I could push him for. I think it's because I was raised with a very one-track pony sort of mindset where if you're not good at these select few things, then that's it, it's finished for you. You're just going to be a failure. You're not going to make it anywhere, right? But I don't know. But, like I said, when you have one side, when you have an extreme of one side, you tend to go to the other extreme. And I am conscious that I might be going to the other side completely. But once again, I think I generally take each day as it comes. I know you're probably more of a long-term planner. I can't think that far. I just have to think as the days go, each day as it comes, take it as it comes, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of going down that route of, you could say, reacting to my upbringing with my son, which is, I feel like I'm at a bit of a disadvantage in life. I know, like, maybe this sounds annoying to some people listening, but I feel like I'm at a disadvantage, or I struggle a little bit when it comes to the whole socializing and like actually enjoying and being happy to like talk to people and get to know new people and communication, this kind of stuff. Like, I kind of struggle with it, right? Or I don't really like it, or, it's not really my thing, right? So I want my son to be like very comfortable with that, right? And it's not just because of my struggles when I, like even now and when I was growing up. It's not just that. It's also because I feel like that is a meta skill. Like, that is an overall skill that's going to be so useful in life, which is, just having that, gift of the gab and being able to connect with people and give a good impression and get to know people and network and help people out. They help you out and all of that. And I especially think in a world of like AI and all that, that's gonna be coming more and more and more, that will be like a luxury kind of skill. So I do feel like that's one thing I want for my son, and it's partly a reaction to like the weaknesses I had when I was growing up, but it's also like something that I think is going to be really valuable in the future. So that's one thing I want for sure. But I admit it's a reaction. But the way I'm dealing with that, like the reason I asked you the question at the beginning, bro, is because I'm just thinking, like, obviously day to day we make decisions with our kids. Like, how will I act with them? Where will I take them? What will I do with them? What friends do I want them to play with? Whatever, right? What do I want them to eat? And this is something that I'm actually taking a real decisions in, right? So, like, I want my son to mix with other kids. So I want to take him places to mix with kids. I want my wife to mix with other women. So she takes him and then he mixes with their kids. And then, so I want him to just really like mix a lot with a lot of different people, different age groups, different types of people. And even to the point where I feel like there's a positive, like there's a benefit from him just being outside and walking, like I'm carrying him and walk past people and he sees different people. right? Maybe he looks them in the face. I feel like even that is a positive interaction. And then obviously there are deeper things like actually playing with other kids. But these are decisions I'm really making now because to answer the question, like what I want from my son is for him to be very comfortable with people, speak to people, different languages, different cultures, understand people, connect with people, be able to network and stuff like that. I feel like it's one of those meta skills.
Mm. It is interesting how much, we as kids ourselves, we were very conscious of how, we I don't know about you, but I used to have this thing of like, oh, my father's trying to get me to succeed in places that he didn't, right? And now I feel like I'm almost doing the same, sort of imprinting that kind of thing on him, even though I don't want to. And I don't know, like what I've just said, I don't know if that's a positive or a negative. Am I just doing the same thing? Am I falling in that same trap? It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because but I think it's impossible. It's impossible to parent without doing that, without seeing gaps in your own upbringing or own knowledge and being like, oh, actually, these are my priorities. I need to fulfill these gaps in my son. And it'll be interesting to see how that shapes.
I mean, the way you can tell if you're being like extreme is if you're going beyond it's hard to judge what's normal, right? But if you're going outside of what's normal, right? So like kids playing with other kids outside, that's normal. But if I was like trying to like, I don't know, like do all this like networking with people on WhatsApp, like, okay, bring your son, let's do this, and do in a very artificial way, that's when, maybe it should be, you could tell it's going a bit too far kind of thing.
But what do you do when your son doesn't want to meet new people, bro? He's just happy being on his own, happy being an introvert. Then you force it down his throat and you say, socialize, damn it.
No, I don't think I would force it. But this is the thing.
Can you see the trap there? That's sort of the trap I'm talking about. Like, meaning, the potential of forcing it on him, even though he doesn't want to. He could be. He could grow to be
ages for this stuff,
reserved and stuff.
Like
definitely.
Yeah, like if I like really put an effort and get him to mix with people up until say age 7, 8, 9, 10, I don't know which one of those years, right? One of those years. Then and then after, like let's say age 9, for example, he just still seems to be quite someone to himself, even though he's had loads of experience and mixing with people. He's had friends. He's met loads of different people, different age groups, and then he's still introverted. Then I will not force him beyond that. But I would argue that if he actually has mixed with a really big diversity of people up until the age 9, for example, then I would say even if he chooses after that to be someone more sticking to himself, he's going to have that skill that I wanted him to have in the first place. Like I don't want him to be sociable and always going out trying to mingle with people and talk to people. I don't necessarily want that. I just want him to have the ability to, if he wanted to,
No, I think that's right. I think what our job is to sort of gently guide the I don't know, the interests and characteristics of our children. I think doing a hard sort of turn in the river is quite tough. I want to let that river flow naturally and see where they, where they kind of want to go, and just gently, honestly, like I've always had it in my head, anything is permissible. I'll support you in it if you take an interest in it. And if it's haram, those are my hard stops. But I think that's as fair as I can be. And then gently sort of guide. Of course, I'm going to have my opinions and advise in certain things. But, I always had it in my head, like, oh, if my son takes a keen interest in cooking, for example, I'll be like, sweet, make you the best chef ever. Why not?
Make me a cheeseburger.
Well, see, there you go. There's the benefit. But honestly, if my son, had a interest in anything, honestly, as long as, I just don't want them living a life of pressure and not being who they are. And I don't know, maybe that sounds really cheesy and Western, but I don't know. That's just the cliche that I live in right now. But it could be early days.
Don't you think there's a difference between something like, cooking, right? So like an interest, like you mentioned the word interest a few times, right? There's a difference between an interest and then something like what I was talking about, which is like a skill or like a meta skill, right? So I agree with you. I think I'm on similar lines with you, where I don't really care what he takes interest in. Like that's up to him, and whatever Allah puts in his path. But skills, I'm gonna like kind of actively push
Yeah.
him in a certain direction when it comes to that.
I think those skills are the. I think there is no way of actively teaching that unless you're doing it yourself and they're observing that, right? I think I learned more about my father's characteristics and mannerisms, how to deal with people through observing him, as opposed to him ever teaching me, when you meet somebody of this age, you say this, and do you understand what I mean? When you deal with this particular type of person, you say, it's never been artificial, so to speak. It's always been displayed behavior. So like,
No, I
I
agree with
met
you.
I met some of the brothers yesterday, and Suleiman spent about, I don't know, an hour with us as well. And, initially a bit shy and timid, but then immediately then out of his shell and sort of engaging with them as if they were his friends, with respect and with I was quite surprised actually, because there was a lot of things that are known to be his things, his games and his toys or whatever, that he's not really too keen on sharing, but he was very much like, oh, you have a go, you try, like giving it to these adults essentially, and he was quite excited. But once again, him being around people, I think we mentioned it either last episode or a couple episodes ago, being around people that are older than him, being in company of quote unquote elders, and not just exclusively spending time with children. I think that's valuable, and that's always well learned. And even, children or boys that are older than him, learning from them and just learning to be around that people that are a bit bigger and he can sort of take from them and stuff. But it is a whole new world, and me talking
Yeah.
like I'm an expert or knowing what I'm doing would be completely wrong. It is one big experiment, parenthood, and no child is the same. And no, just because I get it right with the first one doesn't mean I'm going to get it right with the second one, so to speak. What is right and what is wrong, Allah knows best. As long as that's why I don't want to stress myself out with it too much. I know that if I really thought deeply about it, I could probably stress myself to the moon. And I'm not. I've never been that sort of person. I'm more of a day-to-day guy, and that's why my core rule and my core belief is the halal and haram. That's what I'm going to focus on. Everything else, tawakkal on Allah, because I'm going to lose my marbles. Probably a lackadaisical approach, yeah.
I don't know, but I think the reality is that you do some level of it, but maybe you don't want to put pressure on yourself by having a grand vision for it. But of course, you make decisions for the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But maybe you do that more in the moment. Maybe that's true. Like for example, when you decided, I don't know, the question might come up when you have your first child. Do I want him having like sugary sweets, for example, right? That maybe you wouldn't have thought that about that in the past, like leading up to that moment.
Yeah.
But in that moment, you'll still make a decision about it, and that will probably be what you go with for the longer term, right?
I mean, my mother always used to say to us, me and my sisters, everything in moderation, right? Everything. It wasn't like just the halal moderation or whatever. It was everything, and that was well known. And maybe that's
so
one
you
of the biggest
decided
things I've
that in
adopted from
advance
her.
that you were going to be like that with your
No,
son?
no, I don't think I've decided it. It's more of, like I said, displayed behavior. Because I've been raised like that, then I naturally, the stuff that's acceptable to me is like, oh, we bought you a pack of halal sweets, so you're going to have a couple and you're going to save the rest. There's nothing wrong with him, halal haram wise, nothing wrong with him eating the whole pack in the back of the car, is there? But ultimately, I'm like, okay, you're going to have a couple and then we'll save the rest. But where's that coming from? Is it because of health? Is it just because of my upbringing? Is it because sometimes I find myself stopping certain things just because it feels like, okay, that's enough now. You've done a bit. That's enough of that, and I don't know if all parents did this. I don't know if my parents did this, but sometimes I feel like I sometimes I cut things off. And if he was to actually genuinely ask me why, I wouldn't have a good enough answer, because I just feel like that's enough because that's enough. Not that's enough because you're going to get sick or you're going to get dizzy or you're going to get ill. It's just like, no, that's enough. I'm deciding that that's enough for some reason, some subconscious reason that's come upon me to decide that that's no more of this. That's it. It's over. you know, and I don't know why. I don't know if that's because we're just probably kids trying to pretend to be parents. And I ultimately think that sometimes because I don't feel like my likes and dislikes aren't that different from 20 years ago. I'll be honest. When I was 7 years old and now that I'm 20, show me the same stuff I was when I was 7. I'd probably still be interested in it now. It's just now I just know more and have to pretend more. I'm an adult. This is it. Adulting, they call it. We act
Yes.
in,
Yes.
We perform this adulthood thing. We perform parenthood. I don't know if anybody else agrees. I don't know if you agree, but you just feel like you're performing a role that, I don't know. It's like, I need to do the adult thing right now, which is to stop this. Stop this thing right now. That's enough.
Yeah. I did this. I kind of discussed this with my wife sometime, maybe last few weeks. I don't feel like that at all. Actually, I think anyway. I'm quite natural. I'm just very genuine. So, for example, yeah, with my son, I will like we've got a ball, okay, a basketball, and I was teaching him to kick it, okay, and my wife's like, like don't teach him to kick it, then he'll just kick everything, and they'll go all over the house. But just genuinely, I just thought, yeah, like it's good to learn a new thing, to kick stuff, like just kick it, and then if he kicks other stuff, like so be it. And I wasn't. I don't know how that relates to this whole adulting thing, but I really just go with whatever I feel is okay. Like, for example, yeah, um, and this is something I observe, especially in Algeria. Maybe it's because in Algeria I'm sitting with a lot of people of mixed ages, and there's a lot of my cousins with their kids, and I'm just kind of a lot of the time sitting and observing, right? And my uncles, okay, who are like the grandparents in this scenario, they're very controlling, and I'm just sitting there and I'm kind of observing, and I see that they actually act as though they can stop a child from like running around and playing. Like they don't consciously think it, but subconsciously they think a child will sit on a chair and just like listen to the conversation, and that's just not gonna happen. So I don't take that. Like I would say, if I was to follow those footsteps and try and be like that kind of parent, then I would be pretending, and I would be like trying to just play the role that I've seen played in front of me. But what I do is just very much like I just ask myself, is this a problem? Is this behavior a problem? Yes, no. If it generally is not a problem, even if it's something that other parents would say is wrong or would look down on, I would just let him do it. I might even teach him to do it, like I'm not too bothered. Like, for example, throwing food. That's something genuinely I don't want him to learn to throw food, because it's like disrespecting the food, and obviously it will dirty the place and this and that. But if he throws, some sort of toy, I don't know. I don't really mind that. Like, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with throwing a toy. Just because in your life you don't go around throwing stuff, it doesn't mean for a little boy there's nothing. There's something wrong with throwing. It's not orderly, but children are not orderly. So I just try at least and be in tune with what it is to be a child, which is to just be a bit kind of carefree and just do whatever you feel like doing in the moment.
Yeah, it is interesting actually. Now that you mention it, there's going to be a lot of things that we find acceptable or not acceptable, and we just forcefully imprint that on. Like I don't like making a scene. Right, one thing, just hate it. I can't deal with anybody making a scene in public. So I don't like being loud in public. And if I'm with a group of brothers, for example, if they start being loud, I get really irritated and I walk away. I literally walk away from that crowd because I can't deal with it. I don't like drawing attention to ourselves for no reason. What else? So, like, if my child starts making a scene, like, I've noticed it. Like, we can go out, we can literally walk out the front door to the car, which is parked on the street, and he will start screaming, like, out of excitement. And I'll just be like, keep your voice down, right? No need to scream. I don't mind that he's excited, but I don't. I know he's just a kid, but I find myself always doing that, like telling him to calm down. Well, not calm down, but just keep his voice down. Same with same with my wife. Sometimes she might be very excited and something, and then raise her voice a bit too much to me that I don't like that. So I'm very conscious of being loud and being obnoxious. And I've noticed that actually comes from my dad. Apparently, my mum used to say to me that if I cried in public, my dad couldn't deal with it at all. Like, couldn't deal with me crying in public,
Wow.
right? I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad with them crying because I get it. But at the same time, I can't deal with making a scene. Like, sometimes I remember once for example, when all the brothers come to see me, they're not from where I live, right? So I always say to them, I have to stay and live here. You can just go away after this gathering. So whatever scene you make, I have to stay and live with it, right? So I remember once they came down here, I think it was last year, and it was the summer. And they got they took water bottles out of their cars and started having a water fight in the middle of like the street. Very, I don't know. But that was my street, bro. That's my road, right? And they're running up and down, causing an absolute scene, obviously having fun.
Yeah.
And I just walked away, bro. I walked so far away from them. I didn't want anything to do with it. And I know it's really boring and really like childish, but just don't like making a scene. I really can't deal with it. So going back to the point, that is one thing like I wouldn't want my kids doing. And I know that that's probably going to be quite lame and quite like boring dad sort of thing. I don't mind having fun with them, but like I can imagine if my boys started like having a bit of a play fight in the street and stuff, I'd probably start telling them off because I just don't want that sort of. I don't think.
So how do you deal with tantrums then? Because that's it. That's the exact weakness they see in their parents when they're throwing tantrums.
They don't. He doesn't. He's been quite good lately. He doesn't throw public tantrums. The only tantrums he'll throw is in like at the back of the car. That's a contained area, and I can deal with that. But he's been quite good. Like some of the things that I'd assume he'd start throwing tantrums, or maybe he used to, was like we're out somewhere like at the park or something, and we say, okay, it's home time now. He used. Do you know what? He just gets upset, and he's like, oh, why can we stay? Blah blah blah. But he will just follow me. Like today, I took him to the park today, and we went and fed the ducks somewhere, and then we went to a park. And he was playing, and then I started getting quite cold, and I was like, right, he's getting really snotty, and he needs to go because this is just not on. He's having a good time, but it's really cold. And I thought, okay, that's it, it's time to go now. And he started crying and stuff. But usually, I just entice him with something else. So I said, oh, well, to finish off the day, we'll go to the shop, you can buy something, and then we'll come. So maybe I'm just bribing them, right? Maybe that's my way of doing it, distracting them or just. But yeah, generally, that's what we do.
That's a good example, bro. Go on, finish.
Go on. No, that's it. What a good example of what?
Oh, an example of me kind of thinking deeply into some stuff that maybe you wouldn't do so much. So, for example, this example you just gave, right? And I think everyone notices it with children where they could just like children don't hold attention on stuff, right? Easily they can be distracted. So if you take something away from them, they start crying, give them something else, they'll get distracted, they'll stop crying, right? But when I'm sometimes doing that with my son, I start thinking, what if by doing this, I'm training him to like when he gets upset, he tries to distract himself rather than dealing with the pain of the moment, And I just start thinking like, wow, yeah, maybe that's where like, people start drinking alcohol to, what do they call it? Drown the pain or whatever, because they never learned to deal with it, without distractions, basically.
There's also that sort of, we could go down a rabbit hole here, but there's also that sort of reliance on someone else to get you out of your own misery. Like, that reliance, that not developing a self-reliance is quite difficult to sort of deal with. How do you instill that on someone? And that's like, I spoke about this on Dad's about like another thing, this self-reliance thing I find really important. And I said on Dad's Dunya, some people didn't agree with me, but I said, when Suleiman falls over, I don't rush to him to pick him up. Same with Ilyas now. Ilyas is obviously he's getting to that stage where he's, any day now, inshallah, he'll start walking on his own. But it's like if he falls over, he can get himself up. There's no point crying over him and saying, "Oh, come here," and rubbing it better and all that stuff. Unless he's really hurt himself, that's a different story. But a lot of the time, they just trip, stumble, get back up. And I've noticed, wallahi, akhi, I see it because I obviously people watch and I see other parents in parks and stuff. When Suleiman falls, he falls over and then he looks at me. When he's on the floor, he looks at me. And if I don't react badly, he just gets up. You see other parents, same thing happens. Child falls, they look at their parents. When their parent starts giving an emotional reaction, then they start crying because they think, okay, I've got the go ahead to cry now, right? And a lot of the time, it's just about giving them that sort of confidence to get themselves back up again. Because in my wild theory about it is that we're not always going to be there to pick them up. And if they just learn to brush themselves off and carry on, it's going to, I don't know, make them braver, stronger, especially boys. Now, once again, I'm speaking from a father of boys perspective. I don't think I'd be able to do that if it was a girl. If I had a girl and she fell over, I'd probably be like flipping, come here, I'll save you. Do you know what I mean? But that's probably they do say, don't they? If you're a father of daughters, it's a different story. But for my boys, akhi, boys will be boys. You're going to fall, you're going to stumble, you're going to hurt yourself. Get up, it's fine. Maybe I'm harsh.
Well, this is something
not,
that you want to teach your kids, basically, isn't it? Like you want to teach them to. I think they call it self-soothing, right? So when you're feeling pain or upset, whether it's physically or emotionally, that you're able to self-soothe. And I always go back to this book, Emotional Intelligence, by I think it's Daniel Gottman. It's like one of those legendary kind of books. It's very long and detailed, but I just always remember bits from it, even though I've only read it once or twice. And he talks about this, the inabilities to self-soothe, and that's what they say is associated with these kind of school shootings and stuff. It's like they have this rage inside them, and they never learn how to deal with it. Right. And so the only way to deal with it is that they have to either, whether it's kill themselves, whether it's take drugs, whether it's, go on this shooting spree kind of thing. That's how they deal with it, because they never learn. So no doubt, this is, I would say, one of the big jobs, one of the main roles we have is to teach this, self-soothing. It's one of the meta skills I would have up there that I want to teach my son. And I'm like you, bro. I don't know where the line is, because I'm like you. So when he falls over, what I will try and do is I'll try not to have like a negative reaction. I think anyway, I'll just kind of smile at him and be like, "Oh, you fell," like laughing about it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just, it's a typical like Arab thing. You just say, "Malish," you get up. This word. Yeah. It's like you could, if you analyze it, you could say, "Oh, you're like dismissing their pain." Oh, malish, like no matter what the pain is, malish. But
at the same
time, oh
no, it's just I was going to say this. It isn't without communicating the fact, right? I think that's what I missed out last time I spoke about this. I'm not just staring at them silently as they like struggle on the floor. I'm still communicating words of encouragement. I'm just not going to be there to pick you up and brush you off. That's the main. That's the key. It's about, yes, of course, I would say something, and I acknowledge that they've fallen. And the same thing with, especially, obviously, he's not, his emotional pains and struggles at the moment aren't necessarily in our eyes very important, right? Oh, you can't play with that toy, or it's bedtime or whatever. Those, one thing I can say, well, alhamdulillah, I feel like I'm actually doing well in, is just being able to talk to him, right? I feel like I can just, I'm continuing this dialogue with both my kids, even Ilyas, even though he can't speak properly at all. I just talk to him, and I want to keep that talking thing going for the rest of our lives, bi'idhnillah, because because when he's upset about something, I just want to have that relationship. I can just talk through it with him, right? I'm not there to solve his problems, not all of them anyway, but I am definitely want to be there to just talk through them. Talk about what's on his mind. Okay, this is the issue. Right, let's talk about it. Why do you feel this way? What do you think is a good idea? What are the positives of this decision and negatives of that one, so to speak? And that's it. I think the communication element is key, because that's the key. Like if they're struggling silently, then that's a problem. If they can struggle but then speak about it and discuss it, just like we are now, right? You want to have that sort of, I don't know, emotional intelligence or even social capability to discuss things with somebody so that you can learn from them. I don't want him to be so self-reliant that he's arrogant to other people's ideas and opinions. I want him to be able to take nasiha. I want him to be able to give nasiha as well. So yeah, going back to actually the beginning of what you said, being able to mix with people and talk to people and express ideas and discuss sort of better options, so to speak, just being open to that. That's probably really important.
Yeah, yeah. I think there is a nuance there, and it's like I don't know if we're going to find like some clear cut like studies or whatever drawing conclusions on the best way to react when your son or daughter like falls over, right? But it does seem that not being the one to always soothe them while at the same time having that communication and that kind of sympathy, those if you do both of those, it should be okay. Like even when he falls over pretty badly, I'll kind of maybe pat him on the back and kind of like kind of secondhand soothing, not like going all in kind of thing. But who knows if I'm doing it right? But it's just what seems right to me, I suppose.
When it happens badly, I haven't been that person just stop and be like just staring or whatever. I do get there. I do pick them up. I do
just crossing your arms, staring.
Yeah. But no, when it's a bad one, of course I do. I'm not saying I don't. It's just when it's not necessary. That's when I don't want it, because I don't want to just coddle them, make them really soft.
Yes.
So that's the difference, I suppose. But Allah knows best. Allah knows best. What do you do? Is it a cultural thing? What's better?
I mean, that's another super skill, I think, like coming in, like into these, the 21st century, basically, is being a bit thick-skinned. Being thick-skinned is going to be like very useful. Maybe it's mostly in the West and in other like more developed countries that people have got like thinner and thinner skin. And I know you could say in the majority of the world, people are not, don't have that issue per se. But as everyone gets more comfortable, everyone's skin is going to get thinner. So if your children can have thicker skin, then they'll have an advantage. And, it's like, even if we go to like what Allah tells us, like, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. And those that strive in our path. Like, how can you strive if you got thin skin? If you give up easily, you don't have patience, you don't have resilience, you're not going to strive in Allah's way. So thick skin is one for me as well, definitely. I feel like that's one of my main jobs. Like all these things is way more important than learning, English literature or even stuff like science or whatever. Like, this is number one. And I feel like these meta skills will amount to a lot of useful stuff, to the point where a child can learn for themselves rather than relying on being taught.